paddled for skipping school. The morning sun filtered softly through the small curtains of Clara's room, painting golden streaks across her unmade bed. At 20 years old, Clara knew well enough what her responsibilities were. She was meant to be at school by 8, preparing for her classes like every other student her age. Yet that morning, Clara had chosen otherwise. She lay sprawled across her mattress, still in her light cotton nightdress, her hair a tangled mess against the pillow. The blankets were twisted lazily around her legs, and instead of rushing out the door with books and notebooks, she clutched a pillow and buried her face into it with a satisfied sigh. "Just one day won't hurt," she muttered to herself, staring at the ceiling. The idea of trudging to school felt unbearable, and she convinced herself she deserved a rest. Mother will think I'm gone already anyway. She won't notice. Clara stretched, rolled over, and let her eyes drift shut again. The discovery what Clara did not expect was that her mother, Margaret, would return so soon. Margaret had left earlier in the morning for errands, intending to be gone until midday. But plans had changed, and by chance, she stepped back into the house only an hour after Clara should have been at school. Margaret moved quietly through the hall, setting down her basket. At first, she thought nothing was wrong. Then, passing Clara's room, she noticed the door ajar. Curious, she pushed it open, only to find her daughter lying lazily across the bed, clearly having not even tried to leave the house. Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Clara." Her voice was firm, the kind that cut through silence without needing to be raised. Clara startled upright, her blanket falling around her. Mother. I thought you would be out till later." She tried to smile, but the guilt was written across her face. Margaret's gaze traveled from her daughter's crumpled nightdress to the unkempt sheets. "You were supposed to be in school 2 hours ago. And yet, here you are." Clara scrambled for an excuse. "I wasn't feeling well this morning. My head, it was hurting," and her mother's eyes were sharp as steel. "Do not lie to me, Clara. If you were unwell, you could have told me before I left. But instead, you lay here, hiding. Do you think your lessons are so meaningless that you can simply skip them?" Clara bit her lip, avoiding her mother's stare. She had no answer. The confrontation. Margaret stepped fully into the room, her presence filling the space. "I have worked too hard to raise you with discipline and duty only for you to grow careless. Skipping school is not a small matter. It shows disrespect to your teachers, to your future, and to me." Clara shifted uncomfortably, pulling her blanket up around her shoulders. "I just wanted a break, Mother. It was only one day." "One day," Margaret repeated, her tone like a cold echo. "And what next? 2 days? A week? Where do you think this path leads?" Clara's heart sank. She had known her mother's standards all her life. Margaret was a woman of firm principles, who believed deeply that laziness and dishonesty bred failure. Clara realized there was no escaping this. Mother's next words confirmed it. "I will not allow such behavior to take root. You need to understand the seriousness of what you've done. And you will understand today." Margaret left the room briefly. When she returned, she held a long wooden paddle. It was a simple household tool, used rarely but with unmistakable authority. Clara's eyes widened at the sight of it. "Mother, please," she began nervously, sitting up straighter on the bed. "I won't do it again, I promise." Margaret's voice was calm, but resolute. "You will keep that promise only if you feel the weight of consequence. Lying in bed when you should be in school shows that you are not taking responsibility. 3 swats will remind you." The punishment. Clara froze, her fingers tightening on the blanket. "While I'm lying down?" she asked, her voice small. "Yes," Margaret replied. You chose to remain in bed instead of going to school. You will face the consequences exactly as you are. Stay as you are. Clara felt her cheeks flush hot with embarrassment. Still in her nightdress, stretched across the bed, she buried her face into her pillow. Her heart thudded as her mother approached. The first swat landed with a sharp crack. Clara yelped, clutching the sheets tightly. The sting seared across her, shocking her more than she had expected. Let this remind you, Margaret said firmly, that your actions have consequences. The second swat came swiftly, the sound echoing in the quiet room. Clara squeezed her eyes shut, biting her lip to keep from crying out again. She wanted to protest, but deep down, she knew her mother was right. The third swat was firmest of all. Clara gasped, her breath catching in her throat. The sting spread deep, leaving no doubt that the lesson had been delivered. Margaret stepped back, the paddle still in her hand. It is done, she said. Sit up. Clara slowly pushed herself upright, wincing as she did. Her face was flushed, her hair disheveled, and her pride wounded far more than her body. She looked at her mother with wide eyes, humbled in a way she had not felt before. The aftermath. Margaret set the paddle aside and sat at the edge of the bed. Her voice softened, but her authority remained. Do you understand why this had to be done, Clara? Clara nodded quickly. Yes, Mother. I should not have skipped school. I should not have lied. Margaret placed a hand gently on her daughter's shoulder. Good. Discipline is not meant to hurt you, it is meant to guide you. You are nearly grown, but that does not mean you may behave carelessly. If you want to be trusted, you must act with responsibility. Clara lowered her head. I'm sorry. Truly. I won't do it again. Her mother studied her a moment, then gave a small nod. See that you don't. Tomorrow, you will rise early and attend school without complaint. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Mother, Clara said softly. Margaret stood and straightened her dress. Very well. Now wash up and prepare something for lunch. Idleness has no place in this household. As Margaret left the room, Clara let out a long breath, pressing her face into her pillow. The sting still lingered, but stronger still was the weight of her mother's words. She knew she would not dare skip school again. The memory of those 3 paddle swats, and the disappointment in her mother's eyes, was more than enough to keep her on the right path.